maximize the time that we have on earth before we eventually go to the eternal life. So that's why the series is called You Only Live Once. And last week we already had our first session of introduction by Tommy. And anyone remember what was the title of Tommy's talk? Okay. Seasons of Young Adult. Yeah, correct. Thanks, Gina. And as you know, even in our life, there's a cycle to our life, right? Start from baby and then to become teenager, and then we go into young adult, and then become adult, and finally we become older and older and don't know. And even within the young adult, there are different parts to it, which we are going to go through in this next few weeks in this series. So we start first with singlehood as the beginning of that young adulthood. And then we look into the time of dating and courtship, which will happen on the 15th of June, and we'll continue into the marriage life. And we'll also look into religious life as another vocation that we also want to be open for. So for the last week's session, I know how many were there. And I wasn't there, so I cannot raise my hand. Okay, so there were 4 of you. Ronald, you were not there?
Well, last week.
Oh, last week, yes.
Yes, okay, so there are 5 of you. So can anyone share what you remember from Tommy's session? Because there are many others who were not there. So maybe we can also help them to be on the same page of what Tommy shared. The quiz time.
Tommy says Yolo sounds negative.
Okay,
That's the first part, bro.
that's the only thing he... Anything
That's the only
else?
thing I remember.
We talk about the Yolo 1, Yolo 2, Yolo 3, like the steps about identity, then intimacy, gender activity. Yeah, then intimacy is actually our current state, and basically he end up with praying.
Praying.
Yeah, praying
Okay.
like we need to kneel.
Okay, anyone else? Maybe William, anything?
I think I returned the message, so you need to tell me. I forgot already.
Oh, okay. Maybe anyone else can help?
There's a time for everything.
There's a time for everything. Correct. Yeah. So thank you for the input. So basically, last week we had this session of introduction by Tommy, and I think don't be confused with like the chart and all the words there, but just look at the key words that are in the bigger font. Yeah. So Tommy shared that young adult, we are in the season of young adult, and within young adult there are many seasons within it. And actually, if we look deeper, young adult is a transition time between youth and adult. That's why it was combined, young adult, as being the center point of youth and adulthood. And actually, during this time, it's really the time where we actually start to search for our identity. We want to know who we are, what we are made for, what I should do in my career, who should I be, should I get married, should I not get married, or all those questions. We want to understand our identity as well as our mission, because identity and mission are linked together. And we are also in the stage of this transition where we start to look for deeper intimacy. We started want to have a companion in our journey. We wanted to start to have closer friends. We started to want to have someone who can also love us and acknowledge us. We want people to affirm us of what we do, and even what we do at work. And so Tommy also shared that eventually our goal in life of what God has created us is to live a holy life as our ultimate goal, and that's also what we have been discussing in the previous series. And to be able to go through the journey of to be able living a holy life, actually Tommy shared a little bit on how we actually need to go through the process where we need to restore first our identity, knowing that we are a child of God. We need to learn to love ourselves first, and in intimacy we need to to deepen our, to receive love from our community and learn how we can depend more on God. And eventually, generativity is about how we can actually say yes to God and to say yes to the vocation that He is calling us. And through that, it should actually eventually help us to achieve that holiness. And he recommend the Yolo 1, Yolo 2, Yolo 3 that Evelyn shared of how we can actually go from identity into identifying our vocation. That is first is about to stop and reflect, like you ought to look out, you ought to stop and reflect on our life. And we need to carpe diem, which is about seizing the opportunity that comes along the way. And last is about to take the leap of faith, because anyway we only live once. So that's basically what Tommy has shared last week. So for today, I will share deeper into how we can go through that process, particularly in the stage of singlehood. Yeah. So let me start first by sharing of what Pope Francis has shared. He actually recently wrote this book called Christus Vivit, and he actually wrote this letter to specifically to the young people, and I think it's quite amazing, right? Because anyone know how old is Pope Francis now? Yeah, 80 something. But actually last year he conducted this synod with a lot of young people, and he actually began by listening what are the challenges that young people face. And from all those challenges and problems, he actually finally wrote a letter as an advice of him, what God inspired him to the young people. And it has really struck me as well of the message that he has given. So let me just share a little bit. The first one is that as his first line, he said that Christ is alive and he wants you to be alive. He wants all of us to be alive. And it was funny that just now the song that David chose was also alive. And the interesting thing is he goes on to say that this youth or being alive is more than just a period of time, but it's also a state of mind. So maybe for those who are not as young anymore, this is still relevant for you. That actually Christ is inviting us to be alive. Christ is inviting us to have that youthful spirit no matter how old we are. And he also shared that what it actually means of being young, or what is this youthful spirit that we need to have to be alive. He said that young people are not meant to become discouraged. They are meant to dream great things, seek vast horizons, to aim higher, to take on the world, to accept challenges, and to offer the best of themselves to the building of something better. Who can relate with this feeling? Like, who are in this, like, whoa! Anyone? Yeah. And when I read this lines from Pope Francis, it just really struck my heart, and I realized how old I have become. Oh no! And actually, I'm still like 30 years old, but you know, I can't believe that my heart has grown so oldies, you know. And where has my desire of like seeking that vast horizon to accept their challenges, where have those gone to? And he actually realized, and he actually wrote that there are also, it's not only us, like he also discovered a lot of young people around the world also have started to lose hope, feeling lonely, feel broken, feel like there's no one love them. A lot of people are also not alive, so we are not alone. We are on track with the world, but God is actually inviting us to break through from that and to be alive. And he said that one of the ways that we can actually be alive and find fulfillment in our life is this. If you recognize and follow a call from God, there you will find complete fulfillment. And he said that it's a lot of young people are actually feeling lost, feeling empty in their life because they are lacking in that fulfillment. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They do things for the sake of doing it, and I'm also guilty of that. Sometimes And sometimes it's also where we don't recognize what it is that God is calling us, and He is our creator. And if we don't know what God is calling us, then that's where we feel the emptiness. And he also shared that it is when we have a vocation, that vocation will be the one to inspire us to bring out the best in ourselves for the glory of God and the good of others. So it is actually through vocation, when we know what is our mission, it's not about like stopping to know who am I, but to know for who am I. Then that's when we start to have that fulfillment, and that enable us to be the best version of ourselves and to find that fulfillment. So in short, we need to seek for that. We need to strive for that vocation. We need to start to discern what is it that God is calling us, so that we can also live fully, feeling fulfilled, and to be alive again as young people, and to keep that youthful spirit for the rest of our life, even as we grow old. So talking about vocation, I think in the previous series we talked a little bit about the different types of vocation, different types of mission, and of course one part of the vocation is about marriage life, also about religious life, also about the lady celibate who decided to be single and devote him or herself to God for the rest of their life. So just now, Devi has used the question that I was planning to ask. So thank you, Devi, for asking that earlier. It actually helped me to come up with a different type of question just now. So since we know who are still single, may I know who are still single by the government's record?
Government
Yeah. Still single? Okay, so we see more people. And we also see that we have this few minority who are already moving to the next stage of life, which is marriage.
Sure.
I know, because today you are single, is it? The wife is in Indonesia.
By the registry of his home.
Huh?
By the registry of his home, he is single.
Yeah. And can I ask, like, for all those who are still single by the government's record, how many of you actually want to get married eventually, or wishing to eventually land in a vocation of marriage? This is wish also is open.
Need to take the name.
Okay, and how many people wish to land in the vocation of religious life?
I wish.
Video, bro, video.
And how many people are still finding out? Okay, very good. So it's thank you for the honesty, and you know, this kind of vocation, it's really good to reflect and see where we want to be, who we eventually aspire to become. And of course, eventually we need to listen to God in our life and to really follow Him wherever He called. But it is really good also to continue to seek what it is that God is calling us. So since all of you want to get married, majority, and we have two people who are also still trying to find out. The hard truth that I see in this world is that living out vocation is apparently not so easy. When I just googled divorce rate and click, and I got this image of like divorce rate in US, and the shocking part is 50% of the marriage ended up in divorce. So the vocation that is supposed to give us that fulfillment, the vocation that's supposed to make us to be holy, actually ended up, half of them ended up in failure. And on the right hand side, so this is Singapore, where if we look at the numbers, sorry, it's a bit small. So basically in 2017, there were about 27 to 28,000 of marriages that were registered. And the divorce is about 7.5 thousand. So if anyone can have a very good math, how many percent is 7,500 over?
Percent first.
25.
25. So yeah, half of the US, which is surprising to me because I thought, oh, Singapore is very Asian, still quite traditional. A lot of people want, not as liberal as US definitely, but it's actually half already also ended up in divorce. And it made me reflect about marriage and how we actually prepare for for my marriage. I was married last year, and I realized that the longest program we can enter ourselves for marriage is actually, how long, Kasus, have you started to research on it? Marriage preparation program. Yeah, so the longest program that I've seen is actually about six days because it's once every week, so it's only about 6 days. We are using 6 days to prepare for many years of our life. And we compare that to religious life, yeah, so vocation of religious life. People prepare for about like, I think 7 years plus, I think about 7 to 10 years. And yet to live as religious life with all those preparation is also still challenging. So definitely it requires some preparation. But the good news is, and I really was hoping that I wish someone told me all this when I was single last time. And the good news is today all of you are here, and all of you are, majority of you are still single, and God is really inviting all of us to use this time, even in the last few months of your singlehood. Maximize this time to really understand more of what it is, what does it take to live out our vocation eventually. And St. Paul said in 1 Corinthians that singlehood is actually a gift. It's a time given by God with a purpose. And that's why it's really the time for us, if you want to eventually get married, use and start from now of what are the things that you need to understand about this vocation, what are the things that you need to prepare. So today I will share with you 5 things that I am grateful that I did all this when I was still single. And hopefully these 5 things could also help you to also prepare yourselves for the future vocation that you aspire to be, or for the moment to understand what God is calling you to be for your vocation that could help you to find that fulfillment. So the first one is I was thankful that I managed to build strong friendship with the Lord when I was still single. And it was funny to realize that I had that desire to get married and to have companion. It was as early as when I was in primary 6. So when I was in primary 6 in Indonesia, actually already like, I wish I have a boyfriend and I wish I can have a good looking boyfriend. And
Your wish is fulfilled.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
And why? Because at that time there were already many other girls having a partner, and I was like, yeah, primary 6, and I was like,
What school you go to? In my
because it's a
high
mixed school.
In my high school, I don't.
Yeah, so it was a mixed school, and when I was in primary 6, I've been having that desire, and I tried to do quite a few things like, okay, of course, like try to look nice, be neat, and try to wing at the guy, but somehow nothing happened. And that desire continued to build up until I came to Singapore. And finally, in the beginning of my young adulthood, when I was 18 years old, I actually started my young adulthood finally having someone who seems to have interest in me. And I feel like, okay, not bad also. So we ended up in relationship, and I was so happy, that wish of that many years since my primary 6 dream has finally come true. And I really wish, like, okay, after all this while, finally my joy will be complete after I find you. But what happened after we got officially together was that he started to be like very demanding, you know, like I think some guys after getting together, they started to want more, like I want more of your time, why are you so busy and all that. And I started to get irritated, like, you're supposed to make me happy and feel love, but why it becomes like you make me feel irritated so many times. And it made me feel disappointed, and eventually we ended up in breakup. I think it doesn't even last for 1 year. I already decided, okay, I think very tiring to be with you. Okay, let's just enough, and we take the separate ways. And it just made me realize that, you know, so a lot of times many people and myself were trying to seek that fulfillment through another person. And only then I realized that actually nobody can really satisfy. And even now, as I'm married, it's never 100% you will feel satisfied, right, Tommy? Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. And you know, the world today has been feeding us with a lot of information of the things that could potentially fulfill our desire. Be it through our gadget, be it through a brilliant career that they always promote that, okay, all this will make us happy. And I also thought so originally, like, okay, hopefully when the ads come out, or Samsung S9, and like, wow, so cool, I think I wish I have it. I think when I can take more beautiful photo, I think I'll be happier in my life. I can capture moments that can satisfy my desire to showcase. And eventually I bought it. So I bought my Samsung S9 Plus, this one, yeah. But only then I realized, like, after I saw someone finally bought a Samsung S9 Note Plus, it made me like, I think mine is just normal. And that's where I discovered that, you know, a lot of things was put to attract us, but eventually nothing will ever satisfy our deepest longing. And really only God can satisfy all our needs. The song writer or singer put it really well, that there is a longing that only you can feel. This is God. A raging tempest only you can feel. And my soul is thirsty, Lord, to know you as I'm known. Drink from the river that flows before your throne. Only God can satisfy our deepest longings and desires. And of course, people or our future partner will be able to be the channel of God's love to us. But eventually, it is He alone. It is when we have that connection with Him. It is when we are in deep friendship with Him. That's where we can be able to fill our hearts with that longing. And I'm thankful that when I was in university, I got a chance to join LIC and to be able to encounter God for the first time in my life. And that really helped to shape my mind, that I finally met someone who loves me so much, someone who doesn't care no matter how broken I am. And as I journey with the community at that time, I'm reminded of how God cares for me and loves me in all stages of my life. So when I eventually meet Toby, at that time I wasn't even looking for a boyfriend. I was helping a friend to get a boyfriend. But somehow it turned out the other way. Yeah? And it was funny of how at that time I was actually so filled with God's love that I found someone who is also as enthusiastic to seek God. And that's where I decided to, okay, let's join force and seek God together. And it was interesting because, like, a lot of people say bad thing about Toby. Are you sure or not? This kind of guy, so angry and so sarcastic. Wasn't your last time ex seems to be better and richer also. but it just didn't matter significantly. It still matter, but but I realized that I know that I will not, like, he is not my only source of love. I have my stronger source of love, which is from God, from that relationship that I begin to build after that retreat. So that's where, like, we managed to continue and eventually get married together, and knowing that, you know, we are all not perfect, and the main goal is really about knowing that we have someone that is greater than anyone else. No one that can release a new version of him, because he's only one. Like, there's no God plus not, right? So there's no competition, and he's the only one that can satisfy our longing. And so I'm thankful that during my singlehood, I journeyed in the community, and it helped me to seek him first as my source of love and strength. It's the time when I start to begin to learn about how to pray, how to connect myself with him. I was introduced by one of the senior to go for adoration, and at that time it is really a revelation for me, because apparently in this silent moment I can connect with him even better. I used that singlehood also to explore different types of ways to pray Bible. So I start to do pray as you go. I joined Bible study. I even came to emails when I was still in NTU, because I heard, they have this Bible study that actually may be quite good. So I explored different things, and I used that time when I was still young and free to explore different methods to help me connect with God. And I'm thankful. Why? Because as I go into more commitment, as I enter marriage, of course we can still do that, but I realized that I have limited time. I have lesser time, because now I am called to serve another person, which is my husband. And also, when I went for the family cell group with all those the seniors who have been having children, it's amazing to see how they can pray even with that chaos. You know, like they can't even close their eyes when they pray, because like God Heavenly Father, don't call them. And like they were able to, like, okay, let's do a reconciliation. Hey, come here, you know, like. And it's really surprising to see how, like, you know, as we continue to open ourselves to more commitment in our life, actually we will have definitely less and lesser time to explore what we want to do, to just do a lot of trial of seeking what God, how we can connect with God. It's like singlehood is the time when you explore and try and discover which one works. And as you get married and have children, it's already need to be functional. Okay, I have 10 minutes after my children sleep. Okay, 10 minutes pray and go to sleep. So sometimes you may not have the time. So really encourage all of you during this time of singlehood, especially, to discover how to connect to God, how to actually build that friendship with God. And this will be the one that keeps you strong as you journey towards your vocation. And it is also the moment, like, you know, when you have that strong friendship with Jesus, it will also help you to stand against the temptation from the evil ones. And I believe, like, nowadays with the presence of Facebook, Instagram, it is even more tempting to be jealous. Even I myself, when I was in university, or even now as I'm already married, you know, like every time I scroll into my Facebook, the funny thing is people usually only post the good things, right? So people usually don't post their bad days. They don't post if their partner makes them upset or all that. Those, even when people break up, they just shut off their Facebook and let it be. It's like no updates for the longest time. But yet, I still buy into it sometimes, like, oh, so nice, like, oh, they have, like, they go to nice places, oh, they have nicer phone now. Oh, the camera looks so nice. That's why the photo so nice. You know, like everything so nice. And you just becoming easily jealous. I become easily tempted to like being unhappy with my life. And only when I remember that, okay, only God can satisfy my longing, only Him that can give me that strength. So that's really one thing that I'm really thankful that I did all the way back then, ever since I was in university, to build that foundation and find the ways to connect to God. That makes me strong. And Saint Augustine said that our hearts are restless until we rest in Him. So have we rested enough in Jesus to get that source of love and strength to keep us positive, to keep us in the right mind, even when we see other things that, the good things that happen in other people's lives that can make us jealous. So this is the first one. The second one, again, question for those who are still single, but this one to the single and are still seeking, seeking for partner, I mean. So last time when I was seeking, I actually have a list of criteria. Anyone has something similar of a list of criteria? Okay, Devi seems to not her head. Let's ask so Devi, can you share? Yeah, just a few things that you put as like criteria.
Papa Ben.
Okay, it's not recorded though, bro.
No, don't worry. Yeah.
We can edit it.
I think I wish that he could love me and I could love him. So it's not only like one-sided thing, one-sided commitment. Then I think it will be good if I can also accept the weakness, because I easily get irritated by people weaknesses. So I think it's important for me to be able to accept his weaknesses as how I'm also accepted by him is important. Yeah, then maybe someone who is patient enough to be able to teach me how to be patient with my parents. Yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you, Devi. And it's really beautiful criteria. I think at that time when I set my criteria, not so holy like Devi. So I wanted, of course, a man who
Thank God.
who is Catholic, Indonesian, hopefully older, Chinese, and more, what do you call that, stable, more established in career, so that he can support me. And I believe many of us might have something like that last time when we were younger. And even if you don't have, definitely your parents can make one for you. So we tend to always make this kind of criteria, which is actually very good because it helps us to know what we look for, and it helps us to know what is it that will match with us. Right? Sometimes we try to make sure that it can also be safe to show to our parents of what our parents want. But I realized at that time for me that when I did that, I didn't realize that I only focused on what the person should give me. I only focused on, okay, this guy must be like this to me. He must fulfill this criteria. But I forgot to realize actually from my side. And I was struck that I had a wrong mentality of love, of grabbing versus giving. I think Brother Nikolai shared this in the previous teaching before. That eventually, what really struck my heart was when I attended this talk in NTU, and it was, I remember Father Alex Chua gave a talk to NTU, and what really transformed me since then was when he said, it's not about is he the Mr. Right, but are you the Mrs. Right to him? And it's really emphasized again that it's not about finding the right man, but being the right woman first. Are we the right person for that kind of profile that we want? If the kind of, for example, me, for the kind of guy I want is someone who is stable, good, gentleman. Will that kind of guy, like what kind of girl that kind of guy will look for? And I was really blessed to have someone recommended this book to me. I don't know whether you have seen this before. I think like Davy or Steffi, Rafina also, right? Yeah, might be familiar with this book. And this book really transformed my life. It's about Lady in Waiting. It's titled Lady in Waiting. And it actually encourages us to become God's best woman while waiting for Mr. Right. And inside, what it talks is basically to look beyond that surface and to reflect, do I actually have the qualities of godly men from the book of Ruth? And it actually goes chapter by chapter, going through the different kind of qualities that Ruth had as a lady. So she's a lady of reckless abandonment, which is a total surrender to God. She's a lady of diligence, to be someone that is diligent in her life in all her work. Lady of faith, virtue, devotion, purity, security, contentment, conviction, and patience. And these are the qualities that basically I think if there is someone with these qualities, definitely guys will want to see that girl. And I'm thankful that during my singlehood I was introduced to this book, and it just struck my heart that, okay, I am actually not so patient yet. Should I grow in my patience? And it helps me to focus, and instead of thinking, okay, when is my Mr. Right will come, God, please give him to me soon. I've been waiting for so long. But to really focus and to look into myself and, okay, since now I'm still waiting, can I actually improve myself on these virtues and help me to be the woman of God first before thinking of finding that Mr. Right. I focus on building myself, equipping myself. I actually read a lot of books. I read like a Christian book on how I can actually grow in faith. I exercise patience in my community. And I constantly review, where am I? Have I been that loving to others? And that's really how I'm thankful that it really helped me to be who I am now. And so I also encourage all of us who are still having this time, if we are still waiting, be it waiting for a partner or waiting for a better job, use this time to improve ourselves, to groom ourselves to be that godly men and women of God. And the third one that I'm thankful that I managed to do is to learn to love and forgive. I realized that we are all broken. The people who love us can actually hurt us the most. And when I was in university, especially when I was in university, actually I have this grudge against my father, because my father is very high-tempered, and I really was praying like, okay, God, hopefully when I find a partner, please don't give me someone like him. I want to change my destiny, something like that. Oops. And oh no. And without realizing, actually, I carry that grudge in my life. I carry that unforgiveness with him, even when he's no longer around. Like I thought, okay, I'm already away from him anyway in Singapore. But actually, during the LIC, these things was revealed, and I was thankful that I was given the chance to come to God and be healed of this pain that I have. And also after that, I was actually had another experience of heartbrokenness with a guy that I used to like in university. And eventually, after we get close, he suddenly disappeared, and I don't know why. I was really angry because he was one of the ex-coordinator of the charismatic prayer group. And I was like, oh, how come he was the ex-coordinator but behaves like this? He is like like, like, what do you call that? Like in Bahasa, we call this like buaya, like playboy, like, why was he like that? And I was so angry and upset, and it makes me become full of sadness and grudge. It prevents me from being alive. But I was thankful that during my singlehood, I got the opportunity to have a reconciliation time. 6 months after that moment, I actually met up with him, and he initiated that meetup, and we eventually reconciled with each other. And once we reconciled, actually, it lifted my burden, and I just felt so free. I felt that, oh, actually, he is not as playboy as I thought. He has a reason why he do things, which a lot of times we make assumptions of people. So those moments actually now helps me, because if I can't forgive or love this person or even my father, how can I learn to forgive someone who will live with me for the rest of my life? And to tell the truth is, even after we have that lovey-dovey moments of wedding, marriage, and honeymoon, there are times when even this person that you love the most will just irritate you and make you angry. From the simple thing of like, why the toilet bowl is dirty, you become angry, and we ended up in conflict. Like from those simple things that occur when you live together with another person. So really use this time to look into our lives, like who are the people that we are still struggling to forgive? Are there people that we find it so hard to love? So maybe God is inviting you to use this singlehood to reach out to that person and learn to practice forgiveness, because this will be the tools that you need later on when you any something interesting to share. Interesting tool that we can use when we continue in our vocation, be it as a married couple or even if we go into religious life, because you need to forgive a lot of the parishioners who are like so demanding. So Pope Francis also shared in that letter that true youth means having a heart capable of loving, whereas everything that separates us from others or things that makes us angry or unhappy with others actually will make our soul grow old. So if you feel like your heart is getting old or getting tired or lethargic, maybe someone that you need to see whether God is calling you to love or forgive that person so that you can be restored in your joy. The first one, practice to be faithful in the mission. And why? Because eventually vocation will be a lifetime commitment. And though it's a lifetime commitment, it doesn't mean that, okay, I better just stay single and don't get married, because from that we'll find our fulfillment. So I'm thankful that when I was in my singlehood, I got this chance to practice, to be faithful, to say yes to God, and to endure. I don't know, sometimes it's like 1 or 2 years serving in ministry, or even to be faithful in my work. Because a lot of times things are fun when we are beginning of that journey. When I started my career, it was whoa, so enthusiastic. But after 3 years, it's like, God, why am I here? And every time I pray, I really wish like, okay, you're my time to move on. But God always say, okay, just stay and endure those moments, endure that constancy of things, endure that boredom that you often face and persevere. So it really helped to shape my heart. And of course, even in marriage life, and I believe also in religious life, there are moments when you basically just do things again and again. You wake up every morning, make breakfast for your spouse, go to work, and then become zombie to it. But it is true that small things that we endure to be faithful when we are single, it's actually, I found it useful later on in my vocation now. So endure the honeymoon period, beyond the honeymoon period. And another quote from Pope Francis is, "Being young is not about pursuing fleeting pleasures and physical achievement. It's actually a time of generous commitment, wholehearted dedication, and sacrifices that are difficult, but ultimately faithful." It is through those moments of suffering or challenges that if God is really calling you to be there, then persevere and you will see the fruit later on. And the last one is actually cultivating deep friendships. And I'm thankful that when I was still single, God surrounded me with beautiful ladies who are so kind and helping me to go deeper in relationship with God. Sirach mentioned that faithful friends are a sturdy shelter. Whoever finds one finds a treasure. So faithful friends really help us in our journey. So really use the time of this singlehood to build that friendship, invest in others, to find that faithful friends who dare to say to our face when we make mistakes, and a friend who can become our shelter whenever we struggle. Because even after we find our most beloved partner in life, sometimes we also need another person who can actually help us in times of conflict and in times of moments when we can't think properly. Actually, it is through my friends whom I have built since many years back that help me to think in a different and fresh perspective to help me grow stronger in my vocation. So, just to summarize, I think we recall again of how Christ is inviting us to be alive. Christ is wanting to give us that hope again, to be restored as young people and to be useful in spirit, to have that courage, to have that energy to live through our life even after we pass our young adult age. And we remember of how vocation could be a tool,